Good morning, gamers. We are back again on this Wednesday morning. Hopefully, you guys are having a wonderful morning. We're going to be talking about this ABK acquisition as Microsoft has made some statements in regards to new deals they've made, as well as some comments on Sony's stance and just what they think overall. We're also going to be talking about a new state of play, and that pretty much is it for today's video, although a lot of it will be focused on the ABK acquisition. Quickly, before we jump into that, if you could do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, and share the video. It helps the channel a ton, and it really does go a long way to getting these videos out to more people. Now, let's talk about this ABK acquisition. Now, this all comes from gamesindustry.biz, and Brad Smith had a few things to say. It was being transcribed at the time. We're going to go over each quote that I think is very interesting, and then I'll give my thoughts on it as well. Brad Smith says, firstly, think about the market in Europe when responding about the difference in market share. They say the market where Sony has an 80% share. Globally, it is about 70-30. In Japan, it is 96-4. These numbers have been remarkably steady for 2 decades. Even last year, when there were issues with Sony's supply chain, they came back strong. Sony outsold Microsoft by 69-31 towards the end of last year. So really just kind of saying, hey, they're very successful, and clearly we cannot compete with their sales numbers. And obviously this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. We've been kind of knowing this for a long time, that Xbox never stood a chance. The only time they ever stood a chance was during the 360 generation, where, you know, PlayStation had made a few missteps. And in this case, that kind of has gone away for quite some time, and PlayStation is stronger than it's ever been. Xbox, on the other hand, is not really even close to the brand and company it was in the 360 generation, where it changed a lot of people and their opinions on gaming because of how good their online was, their achievement system was, their party chat was. It was very much game-changing at the time. Since then, it is not, in that case, even close to what it was then. So yeah, I mean, these numbers are very true, and it doesn't surprise me. In fact, it's really just Microsoft exposing that, you know, they're not doing that hot compared to PlayStation. Although that doesn't mean that they're not profitable. They're, you know, they're selling enough units and they're doing their thing. Compared to PlayStation, they're not even close. They're not even in the same league, which I actually said that before this gen even started, that was going to be the case, but I got some comments about that. Anyway, going on to our next quote, he says, Sony can spend all its energy trying to block this deal, which will reduce competition and slow the evolution of the market, or they can sit down with us and hammer out a deal. And here's the thing, I feel like it's always interesting to me, because it's like they got to do their PR speak. They got to talk about it and try to make their side seem like the right side, right? They got to come off like the good guys. Always, that's just kind of what it is. Sony's going to do that. Microsoft's going to do that. So I'm not saying one is doing that more than the other. But they're talking about let's hammer out a deal. They're trying to really push it, right? They're trying to intimidate. They're trying to get them to agree to a deal as if like, oh, you better do it now because, you know, time's running out type of deal, right? But the thing is, I think if they get that deal, it's going to make their side look better. So Sony's never going to agree to that. They're not going to agree to that. They can go sign deals with anybody that they want. If Sony's not agreeing to that, which is the major factor here, why this whole thing is being evaluated furthermore, then it's all moot anyway. You know, so I think that that's a major thing. And his comment about this is very much just that. It's almost like an intimidation tactic. Next, he says, Sony says Call of Duty is a must-have product, but that must-have title was only available on 120 million devices. And if this goes through, it'll be available on 150 million more devices. And I find it interesting. The kind of the argument is, hey, we're going to put these games on more platforms. There's a caveat to it, obviously. It's not necessarily super crystal clear how they're going to manage that either. But the thing is, they're talking about, and because they're trying to counteract Sony saying, hey, they're going to take these games possibly away from us, or they're going to give us an inferior version. So they're constantly going to harp on, hey, we're making it available to more people, That's kind of just the constant thing. The constant thing that they're hammering home is, we're trying to make deals with everybody. Mind you, caveat 10 years. What happens after 10 years? Nobody knows other than Microsoft, right? And in response to kind of what's stopping this deal from happening, he says there's only one barrier to stopping this deal going through. It's the regulators. And that's a fact, you know, and I find it interesting that people see, you know, Microsoft getting deals with NVIDIA and Nintendo as some sort of green-lit type of deal. No, that's really not it. Even though Smith says he's more optimistic about the deal going through because of the deals with NVIDIA and Nintendo, I think that it really doesn't change much, to be honest. I feel like it's no more likely to go through than prior to this deal. And the reason for that is NVIDIA is not PlayStation. Their main competitor is PlayStation, let's be honest. Nintendo hasn't had COD since, I think, the Wii U. So really, are we really comparing these? Not to mention, Nintendo has IP that are much bigger than Call of Duty. Pokemon games, Mario games, all bigger than Call of Duty. Guess how many IP Sony have that are bigger than Call of Duty? Zero. They have zero IP that have sold as much as Call of Duty or made as much money as Call of Duty. Call of Duty is the third, I think, most profitable and has generated the most revenue in gaming IP. So third highest. And it hasn't been around as long as Mario and Pokemon. So think about that for a sec. That's the big difference here. That's the big difference maker. And, you know, we're talking about Microsoft getting a hold of Call of Duty, which is massive. So to be honest, he can take it here and there and try to diminish the actual value of COD. But COD is Activision. COD is the value in ABK. I'm not saying Overwatch doesn't matter, StarCraft, World of Warcraft. They all don't hold a candle to Call of Duty. And that's where I'm going next, is that the whole argument originally was, oh, we want ABK for King, the mobile division. And yes, COD Mobile is a part of that. But a lot of it you got to think about too is no, that's not the case. You want ABK mostly for Call of Duty. And that is exactly what the situation is. And this ties in with the next statement that he makes. He says, we don't think it's realistic that one part of this company can be carved out from the rest. Responding to a question about whether they would consider selling the brand to get a deal over the line. And this is pretty much saying, you know, are we going to divest COD? They're not going to divest COD, even though they kept on going about how, you know, it's all about King. It's all about the mobile division. It's not about COD. Like we all know, come on, guys. We can't play this charade. Call of Duty is why they want ABK. Call of Duty plus the other stuff. But mostly Call of Duty because it's a massive IP and it's the one game that's been performing well pretty much for like 2 decades. It's been a long time that COD has been consistent and it keeps breaking sales numbers and keeps breaking player numbers and revenue and all that stuff. So yes, 100% COD is the reason. And no matter how many ways they want to state it or, you know, change the wording of it, that is the reason why they want COD. And yes, they're absolutely not going to divest COD. Why would they do that? That makes no sense. It would devalue the acquisition. It would devalue the whole point of ABK. And it would definitely take away a lot of leverage that Microsoft could have. Now, the thing with this deal and kind of my closing thoughts on this is quite simple. If this deal goes through and Sony does and it basically agree to a 10-year deal, the one problem and the one issue that would happen, and I think that it would truly cause some concern, is that they would have full leverage with COD after a 10-year deal. Does that start in the next generation or the generation after? I don't know. But to say that they would have zero leverage and they wouldn't leverage Call of Duty is just an absolute lie. They would 100% do it because that's their IP. They're entitled to do what they want with it. My other challenge with a lot of things that I'm reading that Microsoft's saying and is that they kind of continue to say competition is very one-sided for Sony and they want some sort of semblance of balance in the industry. But the only way there would be balance in that way is if you had intentions to make Call of Duty on your platform better, or maybe be cheaper, or maybe like it all depends, right? If it's through Game Pass, yeah, I think that's a pretty big advantage. So I think they're not being completely transparent, as usual. Businessmen are not transparent. That's just not what they do. I think Microsoft is definitely going to take advantage of COD. They're going to leverage it. We'll see what happens. I promise you that I would be shocked if they didn't leverage it. They leverage Bethesda. It's theirs. I mean, they're free to do that, but they're going to leverage COD. And I promise you they're going to leverage COD. I mean, lastly, they did say about Microsoft signing a deal with Nvidia and Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to GeForce Now and Nintendo Switch consoles. They say it will also bring all Xbox games that are on PC to GeForce Now. Sony, however, has remained opposed to the deal and will not sign the agreement. And of course, again, they're not going to sign the agreement. We'll see what happens. This deal to me is no closer than it's ever been. It's, you know, it's anyone's at this point. I think it'll likely go through, but I do think there will be caveats, and I think there will be major concessions that have to be made in order for this deal to go through, that I think so much so it would very much undo the leverage that they would have had otherwise with Call of Duty. I feel like they could have done a lot with Call of Duty if there aren't restrictions, but there will be restrictions. I could totally see it. But that's my thoughts on COD and this whole situation. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, as a lot of new information has come out. Now, next we're talking about the state of play, and I'm not going to talk about this for far too long, as I already have a dedicated video. If you didn't see that already, you can definitely go check it out. But what I did want to say is that, yes, there is a state of play. It's happening on February 23rd, and it's going to have a PSVR 2 focus. There's going to be some third-party games, and they're also going to have 15 minutes of all new gameplay details and updates on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And that's kind of it. That's really it. And I think the biggest game that we could see there in terms of a third party outside of Suicide Squad is Final Fantasy 16. Is that actually going to happen? I don't know, but it'd be cool if it did. So that does it for our daily news wrap up. Please let me know what you guys think of all this ABK craziness. I feel like that's kind of the major key point that is hit. And definitely wanted to dive into that as we've been covering it, and kind of just explore what's being said here, and definitely share my opinions. Hopefully you guys will share yours as well. Also, let me know what you guys expect to see at this new state of play. Are you excited for it? And what do you want to see? As always, if you have not subscribed already, please subscribe, like, comment, share the video. It helps the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter. Link will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you on the next one. Take care.